The J26 David is the free reward in War Thunder's 11th Battle Pass, Her Majesty's Hussar. Today I'm going to answer the question of, is it worth it to grind for this plane? And I'm also going to detail my experience with it in all game modes that you're likely to use it in. Looking around online, you're likely going to see a lot of people crap on this plane before they've even used it. That's because the David is a boring aircraft. It's yet another Mustang when most countries in-game already have one, including Sweden, who gets the David, but already has another better Mustang. It also doesn't help that even though this is technically the first P-51B in War Thunder, it's actually identical to the P-51C. The only difference is which factory it was made at. So if you've already played the American P-51C-10, you've basically played the David. Instead of looking at other trees, let's instead look at how the David fits within the Swedish air tree. It's rank 3, so you'll be able to effectively research up to rank 4 and coincidentally get up to the other Mustang in the tree. For direct competition, the only other plane in the tree at 3.7 battle rating is the J26B, which is a dedicated air support fighter since it lacks the bombs that the David can carry and it has 13.2mm machine guns instead of the 12.7mm or 50 caliber machine guns found on the David. Besides the armament, the David is just a better aircraft than the J22. It can fly faster, higher, and whenever you crash, it'll only cost you a third of the price. As for premium competition, there's only one other rank 3 Swedish premium plane, the Pyörremyrsky. There's a bit more competition here because the Pyörremyrsky has been the go-to low-tier premium for Sweden for a long time. Doing a direct comparison between the two isn't exactly fair because the Pyörremyrsky is up at 4.3 battle rating, but it's actually a lot closer than you would expect. The David can go faster and higher than the Pyörremyrsky, but turns slightly slower. For weapons, the Pyörremyrsky has 2 less 50 caliber machine guns, but it gets a 20mm cannon. And for bombs, the David can carry 2 500-pounders, while the Pyörremyrsky can carry 4 220-pounders. You'd probably get more functionality out of the Pyörremyrsky bombs though, because it drops them one at a time, while the David drops both of its bombs at the same time, but the size difference might make up for that. Now that I've covered its competition, let's go over how the David performs in different game modes. Starting with the simplest one, in Air Arcade mode, the David plays like any of the other early Mustangs, which means that it's one of the strongest airframes that you'll see in a match that can sometimes be let down by the poor performance of its guns. This comes up in all the modes where you're fighting against planes, but 50 cals have a real bad tendency of damaging parts and setting planes on fire instead of outright taking one down. If the enemy plane has their fire go out, then you'll have to swoop back in and set them on fire again, or maybe you'll get a lucky pilot snipe. And this brings me to Air RP, where this problem is just made so much worse. I swear that half the kills I get in the David and Air RB are planes flying away from me on fire that eventually have their wings snap off. And that wouldn't be a problem, but it took 5 minutes of flying in a straight line so that I can get into the dogfight just so that I can set a plane on fire. And don't get me started on how many times I've had a kill taken from me because of this. In Ground RB, the David plays as expected. You take out the 2 500-pound bombs for a free kill, then you act as air superiority until you can spot an open top tank. Then you swoop in a few times, taking a crew member or 2 with you on each pass. The ammo belts that come with the David top out at 30mm of pins, so forget about targeting anything with a solid roof. If you don't already have a good plane to grind out the first half of the Swedish tech tree, then the David is a really solid option. Sure, you might get annoyed with it every once in a while because of the performance of the 50 cals, but considering your other options, I don't think that the David is that bad of a choice and is definitely worth grinding out if you're wanting to start the Swedish air tech tree.